Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 2024 release Milk and Cereal, and just so everyone knows, this one is easily attainable. You can watch this film right now for free because it's on the YouTube channel of the guys who are That's a Bad Idea. I had to write it down, but I had actually seen videos from these guys many times before. They do these kind of shorts that are usually around like a minute or so. And they put those out on their YouTube channel, and they're always funny. So I had just known these guys as people who do comedy. But then I was looking, and they have other horror shorts on their channel. So this is the one I became very aware of because people really started talking about it because they were saying, hey, this is a legitimately good, creepy, scary found footage film. And it's not super long. That's the other thing about it. It's just a little bit over an hour. Which I will say that a lot of the time found footage films feel like they have to be like a feature-length film and they have to be an hour and a half. And I love the fact that with this film they felt like, no, we're just going to take whatever time we think is needed in order to tell this story, which is how found footage definitely should be done. I haven't seen that many found footage films that I think should actually be an hour and a half because there's usually not a ton of story to it. And I just kudos to the guys. Well, I guess thank you to the guys who did this film, just because it's a rare thing that people kind of edit themselves down like that and are just like, yeah, we only need like an hour. So that's awesome. But anyway, this one was written and directed by Curry Barker, who's one of two guys who always are in these videos. That's a Bad Idea. Again, just on their channel, That's a Bad Idea. Check it out. This is basically a no-budget film, and you can tell that. And so found footage is perfect for doing a no-budget film. Apparently, they did this with just friends. So literally, they just went around and got some buddies to do it. So it's not the best of acting, and you will see that. Obviously, the people who do the best job are the two people who have been doing it for many years now with the That's a Bad Idea YouTube channel. So you'll kind of see that, but other people do a serviceable job, so you just need to keep in mind this is a no-budget film done with friends, and you'll understand that like the acting's not going to be great, but I will say when you take that into consideration, I think the acting is fine. It's serviceable. So a quick synopsis of it, it's basically about these two friends who they prank each other, and there's one particular prank that ends up happening that kind of sets the other guy over the edge, and it just kind of like spirals out of control, and it's horror, and it's called Milk and Cereal, Serial. So you'll understand, get an idea of what the deal is with this film. So it's not like it has any like big, well, it has a few kind of twists and turns to it, but I was going to say, for the most part, you can kind of understand where this film is going. So it's not a huge surprise overall, but it's about how it's pulled off and the fact that while you're watching this, you know that this was pulled off as a no-budget independent film, which is pretty impressive. It really, really is. So the setup to this film makes it very believable for a found footage film and plays off of the actual YouTube channel. So the whole premise is these people do have a YouTube channel where they're doing pranks on each other, basically. So it's kind of pushing those boundaries. So it's very believable that the recording would be happening because there's so many found footage films where you're like, how are they going to make this feel like these people would actually be recording in these instances? And it feels realistic. And there are some films that are in the found footage genre that really do struggle with that. And there are ones that I've seen where I'm just like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't jive. But for this film, I like that they started there with the premise. So you can just kind of get that out of the way and just say, I believe them. I believe it that this found footage exists for this reason. It does feel pretty frantic with how it's cut, which I'm not a big fan of. Because there's just so many cuts, and I think some of the scenes probably should have played out a little more smoothly. And actually, some of the scenes I think weren't even needed, to be honest. So even though this is a relatively short film and the pacing is not terrible for a found footage film, I definitely think it could have been shaved down some, maybe down to about 45 minutes, maybe 50, actually probably more like 50. But there are some scenes that you definitely just don't need. and that kind of adds to this kind of frantic cut feeling. It's just not needed, and it's just a weird thing. It's a very weird thing because it just feels like too quick, and you're just like, oh, I was just starting to kind of settle into the scene, and boom, we're in this other scene, and it's like, what's going on? Character interactions feel real, and the dialogue is pretty well done, so it's very realistic dialogue. So performances are good enough. The dialogue is quite good in my opinion, as in needing to be realistic. And I don't know, maybe a good part of this was improvised. So either way, whether it was written or whether it was improvised, I think they did a good job of making it feel like this is something people would legitimately say to each other. It helps immerse you in this storyline. There's some pretty creepy and uncomfortable stuff in this, which I didn't really see coming. I had heard some people say that it was kind of creepy and unsettling at times, and I was like, okay, I'll be the judge of that, thinking that these are people who aren't used to this type of stuff. But no, I think they did a really good job of actually setting up some legitimately creepy stuff, and part of that has to do with the performance of Curry Barker himself. I think he really sells it, in addition to the premise being really good and some of the things that are said that feel like very kind of unsettling and off within the film. So I think from a script standpoint, he did a good job. From an acting standpoint, he did a good job. And it's directed pretty well for a found footage film. The acting, like I said, is serviceable mostly. Curry stands out because of how the character is written, and he pulls it off pretty well. Was basically already talking about that. The pacing isn't too bad for a found footage film, which I kind of talked about a little bit, but if you really think about it, for people who haven't watched me talk about found footage on this channel before, inherently the pacing of found footage films sucks. There are a few found footage films that have had the ability to get around that in certain ways and actually have really good pacing, but it's very common that as a trapping of this genre, it's just going to be quite slow and it's going to feel overwrought, because it's found footage, it's not edited for brevity. So, but for that said, I think they did a pretty solid job. The ending is decent. I didn't love the ending. I would have liked to see it go in a little bit different direction, with impact as far as that goes, but it wasn't bad. It was an okay ending. I think kind of everything else leading up to it kind of felt a little bit better to me, and I felt like it was working towards a little something else, but it's okay. It's a decent ending. I didn't hate it or anything. The film seems to play off the frustration of the stress of content creation and collaboration, which makes a lot of sense based off me telling you that the premise was this YouTube channel where they're doing pranks and everything. And for someone like me, that type of topic hits pretty hard because it's something that I have definitely dealt with before having a YouTube channel and doing content creation. Like, you definitely do get into these modes of feeling stressed out about, I have to do this and I have to do that, and getting frustrated about it, especially if, you're thinking about, collaborating with other people. And I don't really collaborate with many people. And one of the big reasons is I've tried to collaborate in the past on things like podcasts, and it ended up not really panning out in the long run, because it's one of those situations where you can't rely on other people as much as you can rely on yourself. And that gets to a point of frustration where you're just like, I will just do this myself. So having had those types of experiences, I have really gotten to the point where I don't really want to collaborate with other people, because I'd rather just do everything myself, because I can do it on my time. I can do as much of it as I want, and it can be the way I want it to be without having to rely on someone else to do their part. So I really feel that with some of the stuff that goes on in this film. So, for me in particular, it connects in a certain way. But overall, out of 5 stars, half stars in play, I'd give this a solid 3-star rating. I think it's definitely worth checking out, especially because you're not going to pay for it. It's totally free. And it's great to support these individuals. Give them some money. Generate some money with the view time on YouTube for this video. That would be great. But would love to hear other people's opinions on it, especially if it differs. Go ahead and put it down in the comments, and we can talk spoilers in the comments. That's totally fine. But regardless, thank you so much for taking your time to watch this. Please do me a favor. thumbs up on this one, hit subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell button, and if you want to become a member and get some perks with the channel, there's a link in the description to go over that information where you could sign up. But again, thank you so much for your time. Until next time, keep it brutal.